Hello, and welcome to our podcast, Separated by Water. Match Day 2, Podcast 2, has a nice ring to it. My name is Colin Campbell, and I'm a Spurs season ticket holder, and I reside in Drumho in Northern Ireland. And this guy is...
Hi guys, I'm Paul Gold. Speaking to you today from West Cork, and I'd introduce you to our guest, the Spurs supporter. I will emphasise that every week it won't be a Spurs supporter or a Nottingham Forest supporter, but how are you, Tim?
I'm very good. Thank you for the invite. I'm very pleased to be with you today.
Cheers. Thanks, Tim. Thanks for joining us.
Just a reminder about the podcast. It is for absolutely everyone, but it's intended to be a particular interest probably to those of you who live in Ireland, north or south, and support the team in England. So no matter how often or how little you watch your team, this podcast is for you. We want to hear your opinions. They'll be our lifeblood, really, as we go along. And on that note, Paul, I think you've recorded a few opinions and comments from last week.
Yes, the very good feedback. I think the last time I checked, we had about 180 views of the podcast, which for 1 week, that's fairly good. Some comments left in the YouTube comments section, all very positive. So thank you. And anybody who's listened to us, if you just keep on dropping in your comments, subscribe to the channel and share it with us. And we'll talk about any comments that come up every week.
Okay, I actually had one from a friend, Anthony, a Newcastle fan, who was very disappointed that we hadn't concluded Newcastle in our top 6 predictions. What do you think about that, Paul?
Well, they're just not in they don't feature in where they be. I think, as we said last week, they're towing the line regarding FFP, which we'll talk about later on. So I think it's maybe stifling how they could perform. They were flying it the first year they got the new owners. They were flying it, and then I think they peaked too early. They got their place in Europe, but I don't think they were ready for it. Sad. I love Newcastle. I think the supporters are fantastic. It's a great part of the world, but I just don't think that they're there. I couldn't put them in my predictions anyway. What about you, Tim?
Yeah, I think you summed it up well. But I do think Newcastle have got excellent players. I think they were an excellent squad. They had a few injuries last year, so we'll see what happens. But I suspect they'll do better this year.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can't really judge the first game because they had the headbutting incident.
Yeah.
So they were under the cosh and they still managed to get it.
So we covered that last week. Spurs go to Newcastle, I think, at the weekend, so I better say nothing because they have a habit of giving me a red face.
Well, Spurs are going to Spurs. Forest are going to Newcastle tomorrow night in the Carabao Cup. Sorry, Newcastle's coming to Forest in the Carabao Cup tomorrow night. So, last time we played them, we beat them. So fingers crossed.
Well, sure, be a battle of the third 11s or whatever it is, unfortunately. But good luck with that. Okay, well, look, thanks, and Paul, and keep the comments and suggestions coming. And if you'd like to join us, please let us know. It would be an honor. Okay, talking about the season so far, what there is of it, was a section called 2 down and 40 minutes to go. Paul, the weekend went along. Any emerging issues for you? Forest obviously won.
Forest won 4 points. It should be 6. The first game, we threw it away in the 86th minute. Very happy. I don't think Southampton was a walkover. I think that they're a very good team. I personally don't think they'll be relegated, but I think that that'll go down as a good win for us, a good 3 points. Chelsea, and just reviewing in other games, Chelsea have proven that they can score goals in a big way. I think they're a machine. Man United have to be the one that we need to talk about, like what's happening there. They're Brighton taking the win. They were terrible. I watched the first half. I was texting a Man United supporter, and the first half it was absolutely terrible to watch. It's an awful pity. I don't know what's going on, and I do suspect. I'll make a prediction now. I think Ten Hag will be the first manager to be sacked.
Okay, you heard it here.
Right. I don't know.
Well, yeah.
Crystal Palace are doing bad as well. What about your weekend, Tim? Your games? How did you think Spurs played? How do you think the rest of the teams performed? Your
I
views?
think Spurs did really well. It's nice to see 4 goals. It's nice to see 3 different scorers. It's good to see Son hitting the back of the net again because he seemed a bit out of sorts. So yeah, in terms of Tottenham, I think it was very good. In terms of Chelsea, I didn't see the game, to be honest, but I wouldn't. Of course, getting 6 goals is excellent, but let's see what happens over the next few games. Now they got a run of about 5 or 6 games, which are really good opponents. They're not playing any of the big 5 or 6, so they should have a good run. But I still think there's work to do at Chelsea, although they bought a lot of players.
Yeah.
Okay, probably other points. City. Well, what can you say? Ipswich were probably the worst thing Ipswich did was score. Because that only poked the bear, and Holland, got us our hat trick. Arnie, he slotted in well with Liverpool. I suppose Ipswich away and Brentford at home are 2 games you'd be happy enough about at the start, but full marks to them. In terms of Spurs, I'm delighted to see them score 4 goals, as Tim had mentioned. Probably I take no pleasure at the misery at Everton. I'm old enough to remember them from the 60s and from the 80s, where they had some great teams, some great players. Harry Catterick, the team of the 60s, the School of Science, whatever they were called, they won leagues, they won cups. They did well. In the 80s, they came back after a long period in the wilderness. And I thought they were going to build a dynasty. But I think Heysel and English teams being banned from Europe did for them, because that team broke up largely. Kendall, their manager, went to Spain, Bilbao, I think. A number of key players left, and some went to Scotland, where Rangers were doing well in the Champions League, if it was our European at the time. And I think, in my heart of hearts, they've ever really recovered. But I do think, as I said in my predictions, I think they will go down. I saw nothing on Saturday to change my mind on that. So that's probably where we are, week 2, podcast 2. And
guys, talking about Spurs, I just want to throw something up for you just to see what you think about it. I don't know if you've noticed that Fair Game Index voted that Tottenham were the number 1 best run club in the Premiership. Did you see it? Did either of you see it?
Did
Yeah. Tim?
I didn't see it. I didn't see it, to be honest. How relevant it is, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Well, from my point of view, I did remember an old lady worked with me years ago, and her reaction to everything we told her was, "That's nice, dear." And it could be saying we were going out to the disco, had a nice meal, met someone. "That's nice, dear." But we tested her out. We started to say things like, "Oh, my cat was run over by a bus at the weekend." "Oh, that's nice, dear." Or, "We were invaded by aliens." "That's nice, dear." And my point is that that's nice. It's not entirely relevant to me in terms of what I'm looking for. I don't see the players running around the ground with this, celebrating in front of the fans. I don't imagine the fans will be singing songs, making up songs about it, like, we're a better Fair Game Index than you, or you're getting audited in the morning. I think they are means to an end. And the end is glory on the pitch, trophies, winning matches, winning things. So just for me, it's nice to know, but not an end in itself. So that's all I can
Tim,
say.
you don't think it's shown that there's a foundation there? At the end of the day, we all know the Premiership's all about money. Finance is mentioned there, governance. Is it not shown that there's a good foundation?
I do. I think if we just talk about Spurs, I think the fact that it is financially well run, I think with Levy, perhaps we don't spend enough on players, but the fact that we've got a new ground, it generates a lot of money, and that financially Tottenham should be in a good position, should help you ultimately to get better players. But that other teams are probably at the bottom end of the table don't have the infrastructure to do. So it should put Tottenham in a better place in the years to come, I would have thought.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, here's hoping. Here's hoping. Um, we'd made some predictions. Admittedly, they're only 2 weeks gone. Paul, could you talk us through some of the predictions? Maybe you want to see Tim's.
Well, I'll put Tim's up. Ours are pretty much going to Tim's predictions. Spurs top, of course. I'm just writing down what Tim put on the email and saying he goes, go on, talk us through them, Tim.
Well, so do I think Spurs will come top? Maybe not. But I do hope that Spurs will have a good season. And I do hope that they finish in the top three. I think they now have the team to do that. I definitely think they have the manager to do that. So I think, okay, it's been a long, long road. But I think that the stars may be aligned. Perhaps I'm a born optimist. As for the others, I think it's pretty straightforward. Man City, the only teams that can really beat Man City are Liverpool and Arsenal, I think. So which one of those will do better next year, I'm not sure. Chelsea, I know they've scored a whole rake of goals, 6 goals this week, but they still got a lot to do to their squad, I think. Okay, they got a deep squad, but they're still building that squad, new manager, etc. And Man U, I popped in at the end. So there's notable absences like Newcastle, because Newcastle, I think, has got a good squad, so they could do better, and maybe they will do. So we'll see what happens.
Yes, it's the predictions at the end of the day. It's predictions. It's hard to get it exactly right. And relegated, you've picked Everton, Southampton, and Ipswich.
Yeah, so let me talk about that. So Everton, I suppose there's a bit of bias because I saw they shipped 7 goals already, so I had the benefit of seeing that. And like Everton it's got a lot of history, and you wouldn't think they would go down, but they've got to play an awful lot better. I would have thought. Ipswich, I just don't think have got the firepower, and I don't think they'll compete in the first few games. I've seen that. And Southampton is a difficult pick, and they have been, I think, a pretty good team in the past, and they have a good academy. But will they do it this year? I don't think so.
And then you've got. I asked the question because it's a Forest Spurs type podcast. I asked you, will Forest stay up, and you said yes in brackets just.
Yeah, I was having a bit of fun when you pull. I think Forest are doing better, but still. I would see them at the bottom end of the table. I know you call it the middle. It's glass half full and glass half empty, but I would have thought they would be at the bottom end of the table. Yeah. But and is it a good result getting 1-0 against Southampton?
Well, we're away. It was an away point. So last year our away performance was shocking. I'm glad that we've got 4 points. We have 3 fairly easy games to start off with. We've got Wolves this weekend coming. We've got Newcastle, as we mentioned, in the Cup tomorrow night. I hope that we can, I said at the beginning, if we can come out of that with 6 points, I'd be delighted. So I don't know. Yeah, I actually do think it was a good point away to Southampton. I think it'll end up being a good win for us, as I said. But I don't see Southampton going down. I heard a great analogy the other day about Everton. It's that they've been in the sinkhole, spinning round and round for 3 years now, but they haven't been down the plug. And I do think this year they will go down. I love Sean Dyche. I think he's a great manager and he's a credit to the league. But there's so much wrong there. The takeover failing, they're facing another financial fair play fine or whatever. So I just think there's so much wrong, but I hope I don't really particularly want to see them go back down again. I think they've too much history, and but I don't know. I don't think they will. I think they will get relegated.
I was looking at Sean Dyche in the Tottenham game, and he looked like a beaten man. It was a bit expressionless. It's like I felt sorry for him, to be honest.
Yeah, I never forget whenever he took over at Everton, there was a perfect photograph taken in one of the newspapers. It was showing you he came in and he said that the fitness wasn't right in the players, and he had them. Must have given them an absolute beasting, up and down the training ground. And there's a photograph of one of his players being sick, and he caught him in it, and he was backwards laughing at the guy being sick, and I just thought it sums him up perfectly. You know, he's such a great character. I think, as I say, he's a credit to the league. Credit to the league. So, Colin.
Okay. Hopefully, he can be a credit to the EFL next season. I genuinely hope not, but I think they will. I think they will go down. Yeah, I think in terms of predictions, everything else and as it should be. Liverpool won, City won, Arsenal won, and then you've got the teams on 4 points. So probably that's where we're going to be. Tottenham will maybe a 4 points after 2 games team rather than a 6 points after 2. But plenty to play for. Plenty to play for. The next feature we're talking about, we're called Sacked in the Morning. And this is a wee feature where we will occasionally, or hopefully only occasionally, be offering criticism of professionals, be it the players, the officials, or management, or owners. And we thought, well, to some degree, we should maybe put our money where our mouths are and put a team in a fantasy league and see how we perform. Again, very early days. But Paul, how are we going just there at the moment?
Well, I can tell you that I'm not going well at all. I'm 17th out of, or I think I'm down near the bottom. Tim is second, only behind my grandson, who's 3 points ahead of him. I don't know. This is my first year I've ever done fantasy Premier League or fantasy football. I'm struggling with it. Tim, you're flying it. You've got 2 great weeks. High points, yeah.
Yeah, well, I've done this for many years, and we have a work one and a family league and everything. So, and it's very competitive. And nearly every year I start off very badly and have to spend the whole season to catch up and try and win. And this year I decided instead of doing maverick decisions, I'd get a real template team. And I hadn't planned to do any transfers in the first 5 weeks. And I thought the team would stand up. Now I have done a transfer because I put out the Chelsea player out, and I got in Mbeumo just before the Chelsea player went down, and that was a bit of a knee-jerk reaction, I suppose, from him not playing in their huge win against Wolves. But if I hadn't have done it, I couldn't have got him in because the Chelsea player that went down by 0.1. So this year I played it safe to start with, while you get the information, and I'm going to be very slow to make transfers. I normally take a lot of minuses. I'm not going to take many minuses this year, and my main aim in life is to beat my 2 sons. Fantasy.
Yeah, there's certain people in the league I just have to beat because they're always happy about it. My big mistake was I picked Ivan Toney as a striker for Brentford, and they haven't played him at all. He's obviously, I think he's heading to the Saudi League, which I think is a crazy decision for a player of his age to go out there. But
why do you think it's a crazy decision, Paul? Because he can get enough money for the rest of his life, spend a few years in Saudi, and then he's done.
But yeah, and I would probably make the same decision, Tim. I'd probably go as well for the money. But is that all that's important to these guys? Like, if he stayed in the Premiership, he's probably going to make enough money to do him the rest of his life, and he would have a chance of winning trophies in the Premiership.
Well, you're just upset because he's ruined your fantasy football.
He definitely has.
One interesting thing about Tony, perhaps, is that he's knocking on the door of the England team, and he may think that Kane best days are behind him. For what little he came on, he was effective, and he may, I think Tony is shocked that he hasn't been snapped up by a top 4, top 5 team.
I agree.
And whether they see something in him and his character, apart from as well as the obvious, that they don't like, something stopping them all. Now, it may be that Brentford will give up on him and reduce their price to make him almost a bargain, in which case he may be picked up to go on the bench of one of the top teams, or may go to a team slightly bigger than Brentford in status. Hard to know who they might be. But it's difficult for him, and I'm sure it's not at all what he was anticipating this close season. But
yeah,
that's right. I don't think he expected to be left on the bench.
No, I didn't expect him to be left on the bench, obviously.
Well, I think Brentford will decide and fix that soon. They need a player of his quality.
But
So
Paul,
just on the
just going back to
FPL, sorry, go ahead, Tim.
just going back to fantasy football, I think, like when you're designing a team and you see that there's a new player coming into a squad, or there's transfer talks for an existing player, they're the players you want to avoid because they're high risk.
Yeah, I find since I've done it, and it's only 2 weeks in, I'm looking at the different teams, the different games. I'm looking at it much more detail. It's you're looking at who's had successful passes, how the keepers perform, blah blah blah, and it's just I can't believe how much it's changed how I'm looking at every game of soccer.
Exactly. You get into soccer. You want to watch every game as well. It takes up a lot of time. You don't want to miss it.
Yeah.
That's what worries me about it. I left it a lot of years ago because I became obsessed and started to want things I would never wanted before. So on this occasion, there are no Arsenal players in my team, so I don't have any mixed feelings that way. I did have Haaland, so hopefully I have a few points. Okay, guys, interesting. Now, that really takes us formally to our first guest spot. And Tim, welcome again. Welcome formally. We're very glad to have you. And basically, we will mention two things we'll come to. One is your affiliation to the most wonderful team in the league, and the other is the advice you're going to give us. But why Spurs?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. So my mother comes from Highbury and my father comes from Tottenham. So my father and grandfather lived in Tottenham, actually on a boat on the Lee Canal near Tottenham Hale. And my father's business was in Tottenham, actually in White Hart Lane and in Lordship Lane. So it was, and then we lived in East London. So the two nearest grounds were Orient and Tottenham. So when I was at junior school, my buddy and I, when we were very young, used to go to Orient, which was fantastic. And then we progressed to going to Tottenham. So I've always supported Tottenham, thick and thin. I think I'm their bad luck charm because since I've been supporting them, they never won anything. But anyway, it's all good. I love the journey. I love watching them. Love supporting them. And I'm so happy now that they've got a manager that's playing the kind of football that Tottenham used to play, which is absolutely attacking football. May ship a few goals, hopefully less than last season, but it is playing attacking football. And even having three separate players scoring on Saturday was excellent. So yeah, it's been a great journey. I love it. Wouldn't have it any different.
Yeah, I'm a big Postecoglou fan as well. I think he's great. I think the way he handles the media is fantastic as well. Do you think, Tim, that you'll be able to win the league under Postecoglou in your lifetime? Do you think you'll win it?
Yeah, I genuinely do. I'm hoping to live to about 100. Then that prediction might come right. No, I genuinely do, and in the near term. I mean, maybe it's just me, but I saw a different Spurs last season, especially at the start of the season. Then they had a lot of injuries. They don't have the depth of squad, I don't think. But I think the back four defenders and the goalie, when they're fit, are excellent. And there's a bit of work to do with the rest of the team. I think the transition from Kane went better than anyone could have imagined.
Yeah.
And I think, let's see how Big Dom goes, but hopefully he'll go very well in the centre of the park. So, yeah, I've got a lot of hope, and I think we have one of the best managers in the Premiership. So, fingers crossed that things start to come together.
Okay, how do you watch Spurs these days? Do you get to see them?
Yeah, I don't, because I live in Portugal. I don't get to Tottenham as much as I like. Maybe once or twice a year. But fortunately, my son is moving to. He's an avid Spurs fan. In fact, I was playing tennis with him earlier for 3 hours, and he had his Tottenham jersey playing tennis, which struck up a conversation with the guy that runs the sports club, because he used to be a football trainer and he actually trained Eric Dyer. So you got Eric Dyer's shirt on the wall and signed by all the Tottenham players. So they're very big Tottenham fans and very big Dyer fan. But my son in England, he's already booking up a few games. So I'm looking forward to this year spending a bit more time watching Tottenham live rather than on the TV.
Yeah, you should. You should. Tell me, Tim, the new stadium, it looks fantastic. Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, as opposed to White Hart Lane. Can you compare the two? Which is a better experience, or what's your feelings?
Well, I loved White Hart Lane. Obviously, been going there for years. I actually got my son on the pitch when he was young, which was great. So he got on the pitch and it made his day. And we also had a tour around the stadium. But it was an old stadium, and it was like a rabbit warren of rooms and stuff. It was dated, to be honest. It was a nice stadium, but still dated. And I think that the new stadium will help Tottenham get to the next level. And I think it's been well thought through in the fact that they can have lots of other sports there, whether it's rugby or NFL or whatever, which generates more income. More income for the club is ultimately, hopefully, going to help persuade Levy to buy better players and have a deeper squad. So I think it's part of the progression. I think the fact that they built it almost on the same site and it didn't go to a field 30 or 40 miles away from Tottenham is very good, because that must have been an appealing solution. So all in all, I think it's a great stadium. When I went there recently with my family, my two boys went on top of the roof. I don't know whether you've ever done that. You get harnessed on you. I didn't do it. And you walk around. Not for me. So yeah, I think that it's, and I have heard it's one of London's biggest tourist attractions, walking around the top of the stadium. I can't imagine it, but I did read.
No, thank you.
No, not me. But yes, I think it's great. The only one thing is they've got a strange name. Tottenham Hotspur Stadium is a bit boring. Like I used to like White Hart Lane. I like Stadium of Light. Old Trafford, Anfield. Really great names. Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, but I think we all think that is because it's going to change to not the Emirates, but some sponsor that's going to bring in even more money for the club. Hopefully,
like the Amex or something like that. Yeah, it's. I think it's. I actually don't like that. I don't like them being named after their main sponsor, Emirates and all that. I just don't like it. I think it's a sad reflection of their sport. But I guess it's a big earner for them. I guess it's a big earner for any team.
Yeah, Emirates. You kind of get used to it after a while, don't you?
You do. Yeah.
Yeah, probably like shirt sponsorship, which we didn't like at the. Initially, I didn't like it initially. Now, a shirt looks bare without it. But that's it. Okay, Tim, I understand you're from an accountancy background for your sins. FFP, you help us. In a nutshell, what is FFP and what is it meant to do?
Sure. So FFP is financial fair play. And essentially, it's designed so if a new owner with loads and loads of money comes into a club, they can't just spend an enormous amount of money on players and get an unfair disadvantage. So the good example is City. The new owners from Saudi came into City, bought lots of players. Club went from down here to up there. So if we look at Newcastle in comparison, they've got even wealthier Saudi family, and they cannot spend unlimited fund on players. So in some sense, I think that is very good, because I think there's too much money in football and it creates an unfair disadvantage. But you kind of have unintended consequences, which I'll come to. But perhaps let's just simply understand what the rules mean. So essentially, you can take all your profit and invest in players. But what is profit? So if we think of players, if you sell a player for 30 million, and you've purchased him for 10 million, you don't get 30 million to spend. You get 30 less than 10, i.e. 20 million. So let's talk about that a little bit. So if we look at Everton, when they sold Richarlison to Tottenham, they thought they were getting 80 million. So they went out and spent circa 80 million on new players. Well, in the end, they only got 60 million. So then they transgressed the rules and got the fine or the points deduction that we all know of. So I think I tend to think there's always pros and cons. There's pros on VAR and cons on VAR, but I think the FFP rules are probably pretty good, but there are unintended consequences. So, for example, I'll give a few different examples. So if you take Gallagher, Chelsea player, he was sold. I thought he was one of the best players, but he was probably sold because he came through the academy. So all the money they get for him is profit, which they can invest in other players.
Yeah.
And then if we look at Forest, there was a podcast with recently where one of the fans said, I'm glad we transgressed the rules because we stayed up. So what that meant is we managed to buy a lot of players, so we managed to stay in the league. The points deduction didn't the benefit for having all the players were better, outweighed the points deduction. So if you think that through, that means the fine isn't commensurate with the transgression. So I think, like with anything, that probably the rules need tweaking and working through. But generally, I think it's a good thing, and I think Newcastle is possibly a good example of why it is a good thing.
Yeah. I just on the point you're referring to there about on the overlap, it was a guy, Greg Mitchell, who I know from various platforms. He did say that, and at the time I was like, "Oh no, don't say that on the podcast. Don't make it." But it is true. It's true. We breached the rules in order to stay up, and we managed to stay up, and we took our points deduction. And even if they'd taken 10 points off us, we would still have stayed up because we were 6 points clear of relegation after the deduction. But I think it is unfair for a team coming up. Teams coming up into the Premiership, they've got players that are Championship players. You're coming into a league. You're trying to compete with the best teams in the world. And I think there should be a better system for a team coming up from the Championship into the Premiership so that they can immerse themselves into the league in a safer manner instead of just struggling all the time.
Yeah, but this is the problem. So Ipswich comes up, they have a new owner, and we give them a special dispensation to spend as much as they like. So they now spend a huge amount of money on players. So the teams at the bottom of the league are then going to be disadvantaged from Ipswich coming up, for example. So nothing is simple to solve this, I don't think. It's a complex equation. And I think it goes further than the English leagues, because you still, anything you do to change salaries or buying power in the UK can mean players start to go to Spain or Italy or France or Saudi Arabia. So, and we don't want that either. So all of these things are quite complex. So all in all, I don't think the financial play rules are bad as they stand, but I do think they probably need some tweaking.
But then, Tim, like as you know, Forest got a deduction last year. Everton got a deduction. Why is just some teams are getting the deductions and others aren't, like City, Chelsea? Everton's probably going to get hit by another deduction this year. But how are Chelsea and City dodging it?
Well, I don't know. I mean, the speculation is that they've got so many transgressions that they're working through the cases. But you don't have. Remember, you're looking at the whole profit of the club. So from advertising, from sales of seat sales and everything else, shirt sales. So the calculation is very complicated, and we don't have visibility in that. So it's hard to say 100% City did something wrong. People suspect they did because they spend a lot of money, but they also sell players that are worth quite a lot. So I think you would think that if they had transgressed and there was proof, that it would be enforced. It'd have to be. You can't just not enforce it on a club breaking the rules. So I can't give you a good answer, but because I don't know. But I suspect they haven't transgressed the rules. But I think most people think they have, and a points deduction's coming down the road. I don't know.
And another prediction I'll ask you for: if they're found guilty, 115 charges, you have to assume that half of them are alleged charges, I should say. If 50% of them they're convicted of or found to be guilty or found to have transgressed the rules, what do you think will happen to them? Will they relegate them? Will they put a transfer ban on them?
Well, what I would do is I would give them the points deduction that is commensurate with the whatever rules they've broken. So, they could get a 10-point deduction, or they could get a 40-point deduction. So you could have a circumstance where effectively they will be relegated, or you could have a circumstance where they'll have to win the rest of the games not to be relegated. So yeah. I think we have to see how it all progresses. But I do think there needs to be a little bit more transparency, because there's too much speculation and too much uncertainty, and that's not good for football.
No, I certainly don't think state-owned clubs are a good thing for the Premiership.
But do you think having extra money invested in Newcastle, because the previous owner wasn't investing much money, or money invested in City is a bad thing, and it means clubs like Man United and Arsenal have to try even harder to win, and Liverpool have to. Isn't it better for all of us if there's more money invested and English football is in a better position?
The irony of that question is that for a number of years and a number of bad owners, Forest didn't have any money. Now we've got the money, we can't spend it, and we've got an owner that wants to spend it. But I think that the Newcastle, ironically, with all the money they have, they're towing the line better than anybody else is, because they're selling players to try and keep in with the FFP rules. But yeah, I take your point that I agree with you. Actually, I'll take that. I agree.
Paul, the price of players is creeping up and up and up. If certain clubs don't have the money, then the prices might come down a bit to more sensible levels, which possibly isn't a bad thing.
Adjust as well. Yeah, it's a complex subject. It definitely is.
Yeah. In closing, I foresee a relaxation of the rules for one reason. That is that the Premier League is a worldwide product. And as Tim alluded to, if the best players go to other leagues, it might be harder to sell. Go anywhere in the world and you'll see signs up Premier League matches, on at all hours of the day. It's a worldwide product nowadays, and Sky will want, and Premier League will want to have the best players in it. And that will always keep them tempered, So we'll see how it goes for the next while. It's probably like we know there's something needs to be done, and we're just not sure we've quite put our finger on it yet. Okay, yeah. Tim, thanks for that. Very, very interesting indeed. I know many people have been talking about this, but probably not with the clarity that you've just done. So we're very, very grateful.
Thank you.
Well, it takes us on to one another point here. One we're calling Emerald Eye. I mentioned before that we have a focus on the Ireland, North and South, and who are representing the country in England. Last week with Kieran McKenna, still doing okay. This week, a gentleman close to Paul's heart. His name is Andrew Omobadeli, and he plays for Nottingham Forest. Young guy, 22 years of age, I think, born in Leixlip. And well, tell us, Paul, is he on a team? What's happening? Good or bad?
He came to us from Swindon. Great to see Irish players in the league, and it's always an extra interest if you can get them. Like, you look back to the days of George Best and players like that. It's always nice when you know they come from your own country. But he's cemented his place at the end of last season into our team. He hasn't played. He was substituted on this week, but he's lost his place temporarily. But he's a very good, solid defender who I think he'll come back into the team. I think they favoured new signings to him, but I do think that he's a one for the future. He's playing for Ireland in every game now. And I think he's a great addition to our squad. A squad player, great to have him on the bench anytime. You'd be happy to bring him on as a substitute, but I would actually be happy to see him starting every single week.
Okay.
He's
Okay,
yep.
Good luck, Andrew,
Yep.
and keep Paul happy. Good luck with that too.
It's nice to have an Irish player in your team.
Yeah. Okay, Paul, this week, note of concern. Right, who
Note
has
of
vexed
concern.
you this week?
Note of concern. Did you see the incident with Bournemouth and Southampton at the weekend where the goal was disallowed? That was and every week we could sit here and talk about VAR over and over and over again. I think that was a stonewall penalty. It should have been given. Do you agree or disagree? Before I go any further, do you agree? Was it a penalty?
I'm not sure, but I'll take your word for it.
Did you see it?
I didn't see it, to be honest.
You know, it hit him here, and it went into. Anyway, my point in this is,
it was a goal.
It was disallowed.
And well, you said a penalty. It was a goal.
Sorry, the goal was disallowed. My apologies. The goal was disallowed.
I think it was a goal.
I think it was
a goal. Yeah.
My apologies. I said penalty. Anyway, my point in that is VAR comes straight into it. The referee didn't go and look at the screen. And this is a conspiracy theory, but I don't know if you remember last year, Stuart Atwell, and he was refereeing the Luton Forest game. And before the game came up, vital points for us. Before the game came up, the Forest made it known that Stuart Atwell was a Luton supporter. And there was 3 penalties, 2 of which none of them were given. 2 of which on the Monday morning, Howard Webb apologised and said that there were penalties and they should have been given. And the third one was 50-50. It could have been given one week or not the next week. It was like having a fox in the hen coop, to be honest. He was just going to do his job and make sure that Luton get the best side of the coin. And it was acknowledged. Tim Robinson transpires lives in Middleton-on-Sea, which is just a suburb of Southampton. Southampton is the nearest rival is Bournemouth. I know it's a conspiracy theory, but my point in that is, they should have to declare what teams they support in advance. Now, they did say, I think they made an announcement recently that they're going to have that, but he hasn't declared. He hasn't declared who he supports. And I just think it's a very dangerous thing for a wee team like Luton or Ipswich to have a team playing against them and the referee not given decisions because they support a team. I just think it's very dangerous. And I think it is a point for concern.
Okay, and it probably should take away any doubt that people would have. I mean, for the years that Spurs played Man United with Howard Webb refereeing, and we always had to worry about that too, particularly when he joined the celebrations when United scored.
I remember that.
Yeah, I mean, I think referees are wonderful people. I love them. But I would think we should protect them from any doubt. Okay, well, you got that off your chest.
Well, I think it would be doing the referees a favour as well, so that they're not put in that position.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Paul, you're going to finish this week with a Paul's Puzzler.
Yep, bit of fun. We've all dealt with all the serious ones. Just a couple of quick questions for you and see how you get on. 4 Premiership teams that play at grounds that end in park. Can you name the 4?
Okay. Well, we don't do it now. Do we do it now?
Do it now, yeah.
All right.
I'll leave this for you, Colin.
Well, thank you. No, leave this for me. Leave it for if we have any listeners, they can come into you and let you know what it is. I'll just mind blank at the minute because some of them have changed. We're playing Park.
Will I give you a hand?
St.
James's Park.
St. James's Park, Selhurst Park, Crystal Palace. Where else would there be? Ground.
Everton.
Everton, Goodison Park. Yeah, okay. What's the other one?
Villa Park.
Villa Park. Geez, yes, you got that. Okay, fair enough. Brain fog.
Just a bit of fun.
Okay.
Just a bit of fun.
Well done. Yeah. Well, look, that wraps it up for this week. We've covered quite a lot. Thanks particularly to you, Tim, for
Yes,
your stories about your Tottenham experience, much more pleasant than mine, and particularly for your insights to financial fair play. I think that story will run. So thank you so much. Paul, we'll just give you a quick reminder how to subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Yeah, if you just want to go onto the YouTube channel, subscribe, tell your friends about it, like and share, and we'd be very grateful. Any comments left, we'll talk about them. Tim, thank you very much. I'm very grateful for coming on with us. You're our first guest, so if we make it to a successful podcast, you can always say you were the first guest.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Colin.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
guys, and thanks very much. We'll see you next time. You Reds.